Well, welcome everybody to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. This is the Atlanta Falcons Weekly Report, and with me, Cornel Hardy, obviously, is a regular host here, and Logan Landers is our producer engineer. I'm the new guy. Vincent Turner had a family situation where he couldn't be there today, so I am going to be in his place. And guys, if we start today's show with anything about the Falcons, do we start with anything other than what just happened last week in Denver? I would think that is unfortunately for any Falcon fan one of those games that you almost need to throw the tape away and say we're going to get better. We've got to improve in a lot of different areas, but this is just one of those things. You think you're going to get a win in Denver, and unfortunately, you're not able to get one.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate for sure. I know when me and Cornell were talking about this game last week, we had high hopes. We had high expectations, obviously. The Broncos have had, I would say, somewhat of a surprise season with how well they have played up to this point. I didn't expect them to be this well coached and play this well with a rookie quarterback. We all know the coaching situation, how well they're run over there. It's a tight ship. And obviously, if it wasn't for the defending champs in the Chiefs, a lot of people, I think, would look more at the Broncos as more of a threat. But they showed us last week, obviously, that they are a legit team. And the Falcons, they couldn't have asked for a better time for a bye week, personally. Cornell, what you think of last week's game?
Like we talked about it before, man. The Denver Broncos offense was like 28th in the league, but also their all defense was ranked fourth in the league. Which was Vance Joseph, the defensive coordinator. He has their defensive going, like working on all cylinders right now. I think before they played the Falcons game, they had 35 total sacks. But the thing was, Kirk Cousins just couldn't stay up. They applied pressure. They had pass coverages. They had defensive pass coverages where Kirk Cousins could not find an open receiver, and they handled the business. So kudos to Vance Joseph. But we all know, as far as with the head coach, he keep receipts. Even when he was the head coach at the Saints. So when he did like this to Devontae Freeman, he keeps receipts, man. So, kudos to the Denver Broncos organization. And one thing about it is they talk about the complexity of his offensive schemes or whatsoever. But the thing is, Bo Nix is getting better. He's understanding the system or whatsoever. So, hey, I may be surprised next year. Bo Nix might be all-world quarterback next year. Because he's learning right now. He's a rookie quarterback. Understand that. But the amount of points he put up against the Falcons, man, no excuse. No sacks in the past two games against the Saints and the Broncos. No excuse.
You very interesting point there, and I'm glad you brought up Sean Payton. I was going to talk about him a little bit. Let's be candid. With Drew Brees, he pretty much owned the Falcons during the stay that he was in New Orleans. And as you said, he kept the receipts. Very interesting. I'm not sure how much that came into play, but I think if nothing else, he goes into the meeting on Wednesday. You have your game on Sunday the week before. You watch film on Monday. Tuesday is the day off. And on Wednesday's meeting, I think he probably said to his group, I know how to beat this team, and I'm going to teach you how to do it. And they were more aggressive. They tackled better. They pushed harder. They got better results. Well, what? I'm not surprised by any of that. Were either of you? Because I know Sean Payton's success against Atlanta. Did that come into play at all? And I'm not saying anything against the Falcons coaching staff. I'm just thinking what the other team did and their efficiency proved to me that they believed before they even went out on the field that they had what it took in order to win that ball game.
I think personally, just the Broncos, they came out the gates with just more confidence, as you were alluding to, Harper, with the fact that Sean Payton has kind of been intertwined with Atlanta, faced them for all those years. A lot of those guys on the team, were maybe in high school or college watching those battles they had all those years ago, and they knew how much this game meant to their head coach. So that, I think, gave them a little bit extra fuel to the fire. And obviously, they just came out clicking last week on all cylinders. Offense, they were great. Defense, they looked unstoppable. This looked like a legitimate playoff contending team in Denver against the Falcons, who we've been talking about since week one, saying, okay, they've got all this hype, all this potential. Look at this offense. Look how many yards they're putting up. The defense, look at the great work of the cornerbacks and the safeties. They were looking great early on. It just seemed like nothing nothing at all went right last week. They only put up 6 points. They only put up 6 points against the Denver Broncos, to what Cornel said. It is a tough defense, don't get it wrong. But for a team with as many offensive weapons as the Falcons have, you can't even put up double-digit points. That's concerning to me. And the offense has struggled for Atlanta, like you said, on this current 2-game skid that we're on. And that is a little bit concerning to me personally. Cornel, what do you think?
Yeah, I think one advantage that Sean Payton had was, I'm not saying that he used it, but he had got some extra film footage because they played his old team, the Saints. Yep. And Dennis Allen was connected to him with the Saints organization. So basically, he had more film footage, and it's easy to make a phone call and say, "Hey, Dennis, quick question about this play that you ran against the Falcons. How did you figure that out?" You know what I'm saying? It's all about connections. It's all about connections and the people that you can use as far as to take advantage of getting that material in the film footage as far as what you need to do to beat the Falcons. And so I feel that the game, he's seen the film of us playing the Saints. Mm-hmm. And he got the connections with the Saints organization to make a quick contact as far as certain plays or certain things. Or he probably already knew, I'm going to run this particular play, but I'm going to do it kind of differently this way against the Falcons, which gave him an advantage to go against us, especially the penetration that the Saints had against the Falcons. It just seemed like he just turned it up about another notch, in my opinion.
Well, everything it looked like offensively that the Falcons tried to do ended up with a lot of punts. We were 0 for 1 in the red zone, and that, to me, that you just can't do that at the NFL level. The run game bothered me in that Bijan only had 35 yards. Tyler didn't play much, and for obvious reasons, we struggled with the running game. How would you correct that? What's one of the things that you're thinking of here during the bye week that the Falcons need to work on, at least from a mental perspective? You're going to give your guys a little bit of time, a couple days off in terms of the physical aspect of it before you turn it back up again. But Colonel, let me start with you first. What would you say to the offense in terms of we need to make some improvements? How would you go about that?
I think the first thing we'll do is have an offensive team meeting, starting off with Kirk Cousins as the leader to give his point of view, and also the coaches and the assistant coaches. But it has to start with Raheem Morris having a conversation with the offensive assistant coaches, and as well as a team meeting with Kirk Cousins involved in the process as well. The main thing is that working on the schemes, looking at the film, because one thing about it is the stats don't lie and the cameras don't lie, and showing them the deficiencies and what they made the mistakes on, and then going back to fundamentals. And basically, if you're going back to fundamentals, hey, we may have to walk on the blocking schemes. We may have to change a couple of things out to execute to give Kirk Cousins more pass protection, because we know that Kirk Cousins is not a mobile quarterback. But however, the edge rush is coming around. We're getting more penetration inside. What can we do? Speaking to my offensive coordinators, line coaches, what can we do to block, to form that wall, to give Kirk Cousins more time to throw the ball and execute?
Logan, same question to you. How do you address the whole room, the assistant coaches, the players, and get your point across as to this isn't going to fly anymore? We've got to make some changes. We are a playoff team, but we're not playing like one.
Yeah, to me, I think it has to be accountability is the word I would use. And like Cornel said, Kirk Cousins, that's your leader. That's your, multi-million-dollar man. Everyone looks at him when you look at this Falcons team because he is the quarterback that's getting paid buku amount of cash, right? So that's going to be the guy you look for. But like you said, this is a whole team effort. You need your O-line, you need your running back room to say, okay, what can we do? How can we buy Kirk more time? Because let's not forget, this is not a mobile quarterback whatsoever. Even before the injury to his Achilles, Kirk Cousins was not a mobile quarterback. So you have to have him basically as a statue in the pocket for the most part to get any connections going. And that's why Atlanta's game has struggled in the last couple of weeks, is because there's just been more pressure put on Kirk to make something happen. And that's when you see, interceptions get thrown, bad passes, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, it would be accountability. It's the O-line saying, hey, look, I need to get better. I need to, maybe look at my footwork, see, am I doing the right things? Sometimes it's the small details, right? You might say, okay, I'm doing all this work that I've done for 11, 12 weeks now, but Is there anything I can tweak that I can make better? And that's just communication, talking with your fellow players. Maybe that means going out for a team dinner, going out golfing on a nice day and saying, all right, let's just make sure we've got our chemistry together. And that way that it helps us look better and play better come their following week after this bye week. So to me, it's the whole offensive unit. And I'm sure we'll talk about the defense in a minute. But for me, the offense is saying, okay, we have to buy our quarterback more time. Can we draw up some different plays, some different looks, some different schemes, maybe put some substitutions in at certain points? What can we do to make this team click on offense like we saw weeks and weeks before?
Yeah, interesting points there, all good ones. Before anyone thinks that we're trying to beat up on Kirk Cousins and beat up on the team, understand this. Kirk is one of the most efficient quarterbacks of all time of being able to get the ball out on third down when there's a blitz coming. So he's a successful individual when it comes to reading the right reads, understanding where the blitzes are coming from, and in the blink of an eye, making the right decisions. So we're not kicking him out in any way, shape, or form, but things have got to change. You lose 38-6 to a Denver Bronco team that was prior 3-1 at home. They've always got a home field advantage. In the altitude is a big deal. I've done it. I played there. I know what it's like, especially if you're coming from low altitude and you go up there. You could see a lot of the guys. That's not an excuse. I'm just saying it is a very difficult place to play. But part of the issue, I think Raheem said it this way. There was the situation where Denver ends up scoring on a bush push type situation. We make a stick at the 5-yard line. We don't get the runner down, and he ends up scoring when a couple of the offensive linemen push him across the goal line. Raheem said afterwards, he goes, that was an effort thing. We had him stopped at the 5, but we didn't have him down. And they ended up pushing and making it happen. They get a touchdown out of it. That was a big effort thing for them. I'm sure without throwing anybody under the bus, he's also saying that was not a good effort by the Falcons. Any of your thoughts on what I just said there in terms of, throwing some of this stuff together, not making excuses, but just trying to verify certain things that happened that weren't good and how we're going to correct them? Cornel, start with you.
I'll tell you something that I utilize every time in the workplace. It's called real-time coaching. And basically what it is, if you see something that's going on the wrong way, you correct it right then and there.
Yep.
And the situation and the only time that a coach usually have to correct anything that in a major situation they got to fix is basically during halftime to make the adjustments. But during a game, it's like, yeah, you're on the radio and you talking, it's like, hey, change this, hey, change that. But at the same time, you can't really have that hard conversation that you need to have with that assistant coach to fix those things until you have it at halftime. And then during halftime, like I said, I never played in the NFL. I played in other leagues. But at the same time, you got to talk to your assistant coaches. You got to talk to your players. And then you got to go back and warm up and get ready for the third quarter and the fourth quarter. So at the same time, I just feel that the problem is that, you got to have those conversations, but you got to make sure that everybody's, like Logan said, everybody's being held accountable. And right now, for the past couple of games, the defensive coordinator, it seems as though he's not being held accountable, but I know he's doing his job. But at the same time, do you have the experience to change the defensive schemes or put a different player in there to get some momentum as far as when it comes to sacks, as far as when it comes to pass coverage, as far as it comes to interceptions? I mean, right now, same thing with the offense. Just think about it. Kirk Cousins been on his back 23 times. He has 23 sacks, and Michael Penix got 1. So that's 24. So yeah, it's accountability. Like Logan said, it's just accountability.
There was an interesting, Logan, if you don't mind, real quick, I'm going to interrupt. During the Super Bowl, and everybody remembers, the 28-3. Yeah. They go to a commercial after Devontae Freeman scores a touchdown, and they have the Falcons celebrating. We'll be right back after this. When they came back, Bill Belichick on the sideline had pulled the pen out from his ear, and he's got this sheet of paper, and he's going over with it with the defensive end who was hooked by Jake Matthews, and he's showing him on film what he did. And I said out loud, even now, meaning right at this moment, you're in the middle of a Super Bowl game, and he's coaching his kid up. He's making sure that the guy doesn't get hooked because he's got outside contain. To your point, Cornel, that was a coaching moment where someone might say, I'm embarrassed by that, or I don't like my coach doing that. Well, guess what happened? For the rest of the game, that guy didn't get hooked again. And it led to one small step leading to another small step that led to another, that eventually the Patriots said, we're not out of this ball game. We got a chance to win it. So I appreciate that point. You're always, if you need correction, it's okay to make it, because 2 + 2 never equals 5. And if you're doing something that gets a result that equals 5, you want to get it to equal 4, because that's a truth that we both know. So I appreciate you saying that point. And I'm not saying the Falcons don't do that. Trust me, there is plenty of correction that's going on the sidelines, in the meeting rooms, before and after games. But 38-6, you got to make some bigger corrections. So I appreciate you doing that. Logan, thank you for allowing me to interrupt you. I appreciate you doing that, because that was an important point I didn't want to lose.
No, of course, no doubt about that, Harper. But an interesting fact I found out about this Falcons team, yeah, we know they got Kirk Cousins, high flying passer, all this stuff. But an interesting thing is back last year and years prior, whenever the Falcons were trying to figure out their quarterback situation, everyone was looking at Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, right? That kind of two-headed monster, Cordell Patterson for a little bit also, and saying, all right, these guys are going to have to carry the load while we get our quarterback play up to snub. Well, when you look at it this year, guys, the Falcons have only had 3 games in total where they've only ran the ball for over 100 yards. To me, that's a little bit concerning. And granted, they ran the ball for only 35 last week, which is not even a season low. The season low was 32, and that was week 3 against KC. So I think, like we said, the offense, you have to give Kirk more time to throw the ball, but you also have to find gaps for Bijan and Algier to run through, because it is a hard time in the NFL. And Harper, you know it more than any of us here. If you are one-dimensional, teams and defenses will eat you alive, and that's exactly what that Broncos team, and credit to them and their schemes. They knew it. It's like they knew what the Falcons are going to run before they even had the play call. So I think that, just all in all, Denver just outcoached us, outplayed us. It is in total last week. And like I said, we're not bashing the team. It's just, in my opinion, this is constructive criticism. This is a first place team still. This isn't, a 2-8 team or a 1-10 team or whatever. This is a first place team in the NFC South. So they are still in control of their own destiny, but we're just trying to see, how can you fix these hiccups that you have? How can you fix them right now coming into a bye week, as opposed to, we have 3 games left and we're tied for first and it's too late. So that's what we're trying to do here today.
But also think about this too, that Kirk Cousins has the highest percentage in running up under the play action. So basically they stopped Bijan Robinson. They could not establish the run, so therefore it eliminates the play action. And then you had to go back into the pistol formation, where Kirk Cousins is not as successful as being up under the play action.
Nope. That's just another credit to the defense that they played last week and just how well prepared they were.
Yeah. I agree with all of that. I think that, when someone knows your playbook and they know you're going to run to your right before you do, Lawrence Taylor used to get away with that a lot back when he was with the Giants. And it just appeared every time that we tried to run. And I break it down. You run to one of 3 areas. You run to your right, you run in between the tackles, you run to your left. You got 3 different choices. Now you can modify that and say that, running between the guard and the center, very, very specifically, I get it. But you either run in the middle, left or right. And it seemed like anything that the Falcons did, Denver was already there with 1 extra guy. We had 5 blockers. They had 6 in the box. You know what I mean? That's the thing that I thought was most interesting, and none of it worked. Before this game, Falcons were 5th in the league in passing with 243 yards a game. They were 17th in the league with 117 yards, and they're also 17th in scoring with average 22. We're 18 points below that. 16 points, excuse me. Just we fell short in so many different areas offensively.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And like I said, to me, the offense is been disappointing in the last couple of weeks for sure. But I don't know what the heck. And Cornel, you mentioned earlier, the defense is just kind of fallen off the rails here lately. With this Falcons team for whatever reason may be. When I was doing research on this team after their blowout loss, you mentioned it obviously, Cornel. They're last in the league in terms of sacks. They only have 10 in 11 games. That's concerning to me. And also after the master class that Bo Nix put on, where he only He was 28 to 33, means only 5 passes on the day were incomplete. The Falcons are number 1 in the league in terms of giving up completion percentage, 71.6%, which means, like you said, if you're not getting pressure on the quarterback, they can just sit back there all day and just kind of nickel and dime you all the way to the end zone. That's exactly what Denver did to exploit this Falcons defense. And, I think they really need to look back, see some X's and O's, and see what they can do on the defense side of the ball. I think the offense will work itself out. There are obviously some injuries on the team. Another week off will help out, but I'm not worried about the offense more so than the defense for this team. After what we've seen, it seems like a lot more weeks than not.
But think about this. What's kind of interesting to me is when it comes to the overall tackles right now for the players on the defense, Caden Ellis has 98 total tackles. Yep. Jesse Bates has 70 total tackles, understandable. But tied for number 3 is the DBs, AJ Terrell and D. Alford. They both got 54. So what other linebackers at? What are bookends at? So it's kind of awkward that your 2 DBs is third tied with 54 tackles overall in the season, but at the same time, it's like, where are the other people at? I remember watching certain football teams where, it was like when somebody got tackled, it was kind of like a swarm of bees. It's like you got not 1 or 2 players. It's like you got about 5 or 6 players all at the same spot. They may have not tackled the same player, but everybody's there at the same spot. It's like nobody. I don't see the hustle. I just don't see the hustle. And my other question is, where the leader at? Where the leader on the defense? Everybody has a leader on the. Most times on defense, you have a leader that sits there and makes sure everything's being executed or whatsoever. I hate to go way back, but I can go way back. Jesse Toggle was there with the middle linebacker. Singletary, you knew that he was the leader of that defense with the Chicago Bears. But there was also somebody with the Atlanta Falcons organization back then that was a safety. His name was Scott Case. And when he was in that, when he was back there in that back, I didn't play, but I was watching him on TV. He was always there where the ball was, period. I just don't see that on that defense. I don't see who's pulling them guys to the side, because basically when the play is over, when they go sit down to the sideline, I don't see somebody's over there talking to them, a leader on the team, like, hey, man, let's get this thing together. I always see like the hand clap or patting each other. But, man, let me talk to you right quick, man. Let's get this thing together. Because all we see now is the prima donna wide receivers complaining on the sideline, talking to this, talking to the quarterback, talking to the coaches, whatsoever. But I just don't see the leadership on that defensive end of the ball.
Yeah, very interesting point. Most recently, and he's in the news now because he might end up being a college coach, but that would never happen on a Ray Lewis team.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Now, Caden Ellis is our version of that, because you mentioned him leading the team in tackles. And a very interesting point, Cornel, is you've got safeties and DBs leading linebackers and down linemen in terms of overall tackles. We've got some injuries, of course. Troy Anderson's been out for quite a few games. The rookie J.D. Bertrand, who was really going to be there for a special teams situation. He was going to learn the position, but he got knocked into it very early when Troy got hurt. He's been out. So we're thin at linebacker, to say the least. And I love Rashaan Evans. That guy can play, man. I remember watching him last couple of years, but for whatever reason right now, he's not in the starting lineup, but he can play. Zach Harrison has been questionable. I still think, and this could only be me, and I'm not going there, folks that are listening. I'm not going there, but I don't think Grady's 100%. I think his knee injury, he's doing well, but he's not playing at Pro Bowl level. He's not getting around guys, and you don't need to double team him. And if you don't do that, that means that a free lineman is able to help and assist blocking elsewhere. I just think it's a whole house of cards that is not falling in the right direction defensively for the Falcons.
Yeah, and I also think another name thrown there as well is Matthew Judon. I mean, I remember when Atlanta picked him up, we were dancing in the streets. We were excited, saying, all right, we're going to have a nice pass rusher on this team, and it just has not come to fruition yet. I mean, also, too, Harper, if we're talking injuries, let's go back before the season even started. Braylon Trice, the young linebacker out of Washington, who this team selected to be the next man up and getting to the pass rush and looking great, who was hurt before he even got to see him on the field. So that was another guy who, like you said, has unfortunately just been missing some time. Another draft pick they had in Ruko Roro, I believe out of Clemson, who was more of a project piece that they were going to try and build. He's been out since early November with an ankle injury. There's no telling when he's going to come back to the field. So injuries have really hurt this Falcons team on defense, and it shows when they're giving up 30-plus points to Denver, who we know isn't an offensive juggernaut, and also a few weeks ago when they gave up 34 to Seattle, which surprised me as well. And I think that's just, a bad combination of not getting to the quarterback, injuries, and just a couple other things as to why this Falcons team has kind of hit a skid here the last couple of weeks.
What's one thing that surprises me with certain teams as far as the acquisitions and even in the draft class or how they draft people? Let's look at the Philadelphia Eagles. That's right now. I think they got the number one defense right now. But just think about it now. They acquired Davis. They drafted Davis from Georgia. And then they went and got the defensive end that was with him that year before from Georgia, Jaden Carter and Nolan Smith. Yep. So basically, you got somebody that's putting pressure in the middle and somebody that's coming on the edge. But the thing is that they have a consistency, chemistry because they played together at Georgia. We had something similar to that when we got Grady Jarrett late, and then we had Vic Beasley. And it worked out that Super Bowl season where Vic Beasley had 16 sacks.
Yep.
But at the same time, they had a chemistry because they were at Clemson together. Now, we think about what we got right now with the Atlanta Falcons organization. We do have Grady Jarrett, but like I said, he may be injured. However, at the bookend, we got Matthew Judon, but we don't have somebody on the other side. We did have Lorenzo Carter, which at the same time, he's injured. He had this situation. But the thing about it is, if I know that Matthew Judon is get sacks, I'm gonna stop Judon because I'm not worried about the other side. Think about this: when we had Abraham, we were putting pressure on Abraham. Abraham was getting his, but Corey Bierman, because they was not coming to Abraham's side. Abraham coming around, they had to scramble back to Corey Bierman's side. Corey Bierman started to look like all world because you had two bookends at the side. But when Jamal Abraham left, it was a different ball game. Atlanta Falcons have never had any success when it comes to drafting defensive ends. Except for Big Beasley had that one season. But also think about it. We had another guy. His name was Jamal Anderson. I think he came out of Arkansas. It was no success right there. So at the same time, we had success in picking people from free agency or somebody that may have just been sitting at home and brought them in. Think about the players that we had before. The defensive end, I forgot his name, Hall of Famer, defensive end that came from the Colts. And what he did.
Dwight Freeney.
Yep.
Dwight Freeney, what he did the Super Bowl season. We have success as finding free agent talent. We just don't have no success as finding draft talent.
I'm a Chuck Smith fan. I played with Chuck, and I know that nowadays he makes his living on teaching defensive linemen their second move. Everyone has a first move, but the second move is the one that's important. I don't think Vic Beasley learned and developed a second move. His speed move around the edge was as good as anything. But what did offensive tackles do? They set back a little bit more, and they said, okay, I'm going to let you think you're getting by me, and then I'm going to push you right by the quarterback. Vic needed to develop a second move. That's what Chuck was there for. I'm going to teach you a swim if you're a bull rusher. And if you're a swimmer, then I'm going to teach you how to do a bull rush move. I'm going to teach you to do a second or even a third move so that you can get to the quarterback. Guys, go back in the Wayback Machine a little bit when the New York Giants in the early 2000s had Strahan, Tuck, JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul, and O.C. Omenura. We had O.C. here for a year or two, but the four of them together, if you look at them getting off the team bus, you're going, man, they don't have any beef on these guys. They're all small-waisted, 6'4", 6'5" guys. They're all about 265 to 285 in that range. They can run like crazy, but we're going to run right at you. Well, they use their speed, they use their talent, and they use their skill sets to be able to wreak havoc and win a couple of Super Bowls during the Tom Coughlin era. Eli is just advanced into the final 25 for Hall of Fame induction for this year. This is the first year that he's eligible. Congratulations to him and all the others. I'm just saying that from a defensive standpoint, you put pressure on the quarterback because all four of them were ballers. They could bring it. So, Cornel, first to you. Omenyata, not having the same kind of year. He's a run stopper. He's not going to be the guy that's going to get to the quarterback. But Grady was the guy that was. And what you said earlier, 11 sacks, Logan, in 10 games. We're not getting pressure up the middle. We're not getting pressure from the outside. How do we fix this?
Like I said one time before, is that we got to first of all we got to have a conversation with Jimmy Lake, the defensive coordinator, and I feel that Raheem Morris need to get more involved into the defense. He may have gotten involved in the defense. We got a bye week. He may get more involved into the defense. That's his forte. But at the same time, you got to hold him accountable. I just think that maybe trying to find some players, man. Trying to find a couple of guys that, maybe they're sitting at home right now that we probably can get in for a workout to see if the possibility of them being able to come off the bench and execute a couple of things for us. Think about it like this. Last year, I think it was last year before, the Detroit Lions brought Bruce Irvin. That's a Stockbridge, Georgia native that played at Stockbridge High School that was with the Seattle Seahawks during their time with the Legion of Boom. And he came over there and played a couple of reps because they had some injuries. And his leadership and on the sideline, what he did helped us out, helped the Detroit Lions out. Atlanta Falcons, I talked about it with Logan a couple of weeks ago, a guy named Shaq Leonard that played with the Colts. He's sitting at home right now. But I compared the stats to Lorenzo Carter's stats. Lorenzo Carter had maybe about 6 more stats, but Leonard had about 12 more interceptions compared to Lorenzo Carter. And he was a outside linebacker, and also he was very successful with the Colts. But when he went to the Eagles, he was not a cup of tea. They cut him. But the thing is, he's at home. There are some players right now that we can bring in right now to help us. Just basically just coming off the bench while our other players get healthy for right now.
Yeah, that's not. I mean, I know you've mentioned that in the past, Cornel, and I mean, I think now might be the time. You have a handful of games left. A lot of your guys are still banged up as we're getting closer and closer towards the end of the season. I mean, it wouldn't hurt to take a flyer on some guy, especially I would say more a veteran guy who's been around the league at least a couple of seasons, been some halfway productive, just to kind of see what you can get as a fill-in player for the time being before your main stars, the ones that we've mentioned who were hurt, come back and are fully healthy. But I think that when you look at this Falcons team as a whole, I think that I think they might need to examine the playbook a little bit more on the defensive side. Say, all right, we have these 1 or 2 plays that we know are our money plays, but let's turn a couple of pages here. Let's look at maybe some ones that we haven't had before and see if those have any success. It might just mean, dive a little bit deeper, trying something new out just to get some form of pressure or some form of coverage with your DBs on this team, just to shake things up a little bit and see if it has any success.
Well, I think the roster, it's never set in stone. You're always looking because of an injury. You're not a good general manager unless you have at least 1 or 2 guys that are just a phone call away from being able to join your club. That's what you got to do. And Rashaan Evans is a perfect example of that. When J.D. Bertrand went down, you make a phone call, you see if a guy's been working out, what kind of shape they're in, you bring him in. You may not be able to put him on the field right away, but at least you always have to have that. That's a part of the job and what goes with it. But Arnold Ebiketie, D'Angelo Malone, and I think Lorenzo Carter, right, who was out for a while with the concussion and the injury right there. We need you to play better. Every one of them. And I love them, man. They're great guys and they're good football players. We're not beating them up, but your linebackers should be making most of the tackles, not your cornerbacks, not your safeties. You can have one safety who's up there with the bunch, but linebackers, that's your job, and we need to get better on that. Any final thoughts about at least the defense before we move on, guys?
Yeah, just my final thoughts is, obviously these guys are professionals. They know the job they have to do each and every Sunday or Thursday, whatever it may be. Handful of games left in the season. You're still a first-place team, so keep that confidence, keep that swagger, and just know that you guys can get it done on Sundays like you have so far. And I think, like I said, this bye week might have a lot better implications than some other teams might have on bye weeks. This is desperately needed for this Falcons defense, and I hope and I pray that coming out of this bye week, they look a lot better in their next game.
My same thing, too. I call it a car. Drive your car. What I mean by that is C for consistency, A is for accountability, B is for responsibility. You don't let nobody drive your car. Drive your own car and do what you got to do. Do your job.
I'm going to throw a curveball at you. It's a bye week for the Falcons. Their following game next week will be against the LA Chargers. The Chargers and Baltimore will be playing this Monday night. Guys, first impression of the Harbaugh Bowl regular season. Any thoughts on what Jim has been able to do with the Chargers? Remember, they picked 5th in the draft right now. They're 7-2. They are a playoff team. They will make it if the season were to end today. And of course, John, they're 7-3. The Ravens are. They're in the playoffs as well. Any first impressions about the Monday night game?
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be obviously a good matchup. You know, the two brothers are going to have that over each other's heads for however long it may be. So, you know, there's going to be that, of course, sibling rivalry. But when I look at both these teams, I think everyone expected the Ravens to come out and have a really solid season like we've seen so far. They've had some tough losses, but overall, this has been a really good team. Lamar Jackson, we know, is former MVP. He's looked good this year. Derrick Henry has kind of silenced the doubters that he had last year in Tennessee and said, oh, you know, he's old, he's washed up, those legs are done. Yeah, no, you don't hear that anymore. You hear that he is, of course, still one of the best running backs in the league today. And as for Los Angeles with the Chargers, I didn't expect them to be this good. Like you said, Harper, they picked 5th in the draft. I didn't expect them to be a playoff team. I thought that they would be, you know, middle of the road. I didn't think they'd be awful, but I didn't expect them to look this sharp. And, you know, that's credit to really just their lockdown defense. Justin Herbert, like I said, if you look at his stats compared to years past, not as impressive, not as eye-popping, but he's getting it done. The running game looks sharp also. And when I look at Los Angeles and the Chargers, I see a unit. I see just a team that's buying into what Coach Harbaugh is saying, and that's why they're looking so good this year. So It's going to be a good matchup, though, between Baltimore and Los Angeles. Really good Monday Night Ball game on that one.
As myself too, I'm looking forward to the game as well. I was looking at the Chargers stats. Like right now, you know, they total defense. They're ranked 11 in total defense. They also rushes allowed 110 yards rushes allowed per game. They allow 206 passing yards per game. But what's most impressive to me, they only allow 14.5 points per game. The Chargers does. But what's interesting to me is the stuff behind the scenes. As we know, Greg Roman was the offensive coordinator with the Baltimore Ravens before he left there before he left. And then what happened? Then what it was, he was with Jim Harbaugh. He was with Jim Harbaugh at San Francisco when he had Kaepernick. So now he's back with Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers. But also too, the defensive coordinator, who is Jesse Minter, the young guy, 41 years old. His dad, Rick Minter, who used to be the head coach for the Cincinnati Bearcats, he was the senior defensive analyst for the University of Michigan when Harbaugh was there, and the linebackers coach. But also he was a linebacker coach in 2024 for the Wolverines when they won the national championship, and he was a linebacker coach for the Eagles in 2013. But right now he is a defensive analyst for the Chargers, and his son runs the defense. So Jim Harbaugh got Greg Roman, who's former assistant with San Francisco, that went with John over there with Baltimore, and now he got Coach Minter as a defensive coordinator over there. But at the same time, what's impressive to me, what's going to be interesting to me, is looking at those Baltimore linebackers, because understand this, and Mr. LeBel talked about him. Chuck Smith is the outside linebackers coach. So how you think them boys playing like that?
Teaching them moves. You're teaching them how to play. You're educating them, and you're getting them to be better at the next level, whatever that level is. If it's from high school and you don't know a second move, I'm not going to say shame on you, but you learn a second move. Yeah. Develop it. And guess what? When you get into college, you got to get better, don't you? You can't play like you're a freshman the whole time. You got to play like you're ready to go into the NFL. You mentioned something, Cornel, that I'm going to double 14.5 points a game. They're number one in the league, the Chargers, defensively to score on. And offensively, they're getting better every week, I think. They're one of those teams that, you know what, we barely got through on this one. We got through on the next one, and now we're going to start to dominate. You look at some of their wins in the past couple of weeks. They beat the Bengals, the Titans, the Browns, and the Saints. They lost to the Cardinals by 2, and then they beat the Broncos in Denver earlier this season. So they're getting hot at the right time, and this is a big game. Justin Herbert has 13 touchdowns. That's not a whole lot, but you know what? You're learning to win games. There was just recently a film clip that the NFL Films was releasing where he walks over to the sideline, and Harbaugh and the offensive coordinator are right next to him. And Jim says to Justin, he goes, "I think we should run it here." And Justin goes, "I like that. That's a good idea." He goes, "All right, so here's what we're going to do. I want you to pretend like you're going to throw the ball. I'm talking to you about running it, but I want you to do something like this." And Jim does that. And then Justin does it. He goes, "You mean like this?" And then he says, "You mean I need to look a guy away?" And so they're the guys on the other sideline, and Jim definitely knows about taking film of the sideline. He had that issue in Michigan. Anyways, and they run it the next play and they score a touchdown. So it's interesting how he's always coaching ahead. He's learning, he's evolving as a human being, as a coach, and it's paying big dividends there. They're playing a home Monday night game, and then they come to Atlanta, and they'll be a part of the Falcons. What are your concerns about playing them, Cornel, in terms of, I don't know anybody who's going to get hurt or anything like that, but the way that the direction that they're going right now, they're a team to be concerned about.
My main concern right now is with the Chargers when the Chargers played Atlanta is the pass protection, protecting Kirk Cousins, the pressure that's coming from the end with Joey Bosa. Also, too, I think Khalil Mack is still out with a groin injury, but it's a possibility that Khalil Mack may be back. But I think the main thing is pass protection for Kirk Cousins, and also to establishing the run. Put Algiers and find a way to get Algier and Bijan Robinson back there in that backfield. And also, too, my thing is that from a defensive standpoint, you got to have an answer for Ladd McConkey. Because what he did this past Sunday, it was kind of impressive. He was even though some of the ball was not sent to him, he was always open. It was like creating, mismatches with Ladd McConkey, and and there's some balls that he did drop, but however, when we needed to catch that ball, he caught the ball. So I think you got to have an answer for Ladd McConkey, and also the right receivers that the Chargers have. So the secondary is going to have a test for themselves, and the offensive line, of course, every week they're going to have a test as well.
Yeah, I mean, with this Falcons team, we've been harping on it and saying you got to get some pressure on Justin Herbert. You mentioned, Harper, that he hasn't had as many touchdowns this year as compared to last year. But, I mean, his passing yards still look good. He's still throwing the ball at a really good clip for his completion percentage. But what I really like to see, though, he only has one interception on the season. Yeah. So he is becoming, he's been in the league for a couple of years now, and you can tell he's really starting to get comfortable at quarterback. He's always looked sharp, but now that he has got a better unit around him, a stronger coaching staff, you can see Herbert's confidence is there each and every Sunday. If for the Falcons, got to try and get some pressure. We've been saying it for weeks now. You got to get some pressure on these guys. And it's also going to help them, obviously, too, the fact that they are going to be a little bit of a shorter week playing on a Monday and then the following Sunday. So if you're the Falcons, hope that, the 1 day, the less than 1 day off there, the normal would help you out. But yeah, I think the Chargers, they're going to be a tough opponent, no doubt about that, coming off a bye week. And let's hope the Falcons are out and ready against a tough team out west.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of interesting points. I'm very surprised that Ladd McConkey is doing as well as he is. I'm not surprised that he's doing well, but I'm not. What I am surprised is that the Chargers were able to find that out as early as they have, and he's been kind of that third down go-to guy. Keep the sticks moving, keep your offense on the field. Very impressed with that young man, and especially with his career at Georgia and his winning attitude that he kind of takes with him into the NFL, and it matches perfectly, I think, with everything that Harbaugh did. You mentioned earlier the Jesse Minter thing. That I met Jesse when he was at Georgia State. His father was in the room with him one day, and we were just having a nice chat, and he didn't have any talent at Georgia State comparative to what he's got when he went to Michigan last year and the national championship team, and especially with what he has right now. His ability to dial up something that looked unusual, that you had to kind of prepare for, and that worked, those are some things that I think as a young coach, you mentioned he's 41 years old, he has a long future in the NFL if he wants to stay there. I know he likes the college level, but to be in the NFL and to be dialing up defenses the way that he has right now, he is certainly making a name for himself. I think you guys would agree with me there, and I'm concerned. I thought we would beat Denver, and I thought we could beat the Saints on the road, but our next game is going to be against the LA Chargers. The Falcons have a bye this week, along with 5 other teams. But your thoughts going into the bye week, real quick, Cornel, what do you think the Falcons need to do to make corrections? We've talked about it a little bit, but, let the guys rest a little bit, but then go back to work.
Yeah, like you said, let the guys rest, but at the same time, while you're resting, come to the facility and look at some video, they look at some game footage. Let me show you your mistakes that you made. So therefore, when we go out there and practice, that you can correct those mistakes. And like I said before, go back to fundamentals and let's make sure that we got to make you practice like you practice how you play. So basically, the thing is that making sure that the intensity is there during the practice session, making sure that the guys are watching the film footage, and making sure that you're holding them accountable for for their position and for them to do their job.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that one, Cornell. And I think that, the guys, they deserve this break, this little break they got here to rest up a little bit, enjoy some time with the family and friends and whatnot. But once it comes, once we get closer and closer to game time against LA, look yourself in the mirror. Say, am I doing enough to help this team? Am I doing enough to help out my brother, my guy next to me? Can I help him? How can I help this team? Saying, what more can I do get this team back on track and maintain that first place that they're in right now in the NFC South, and a division that has been ups and downs all seasons, with Tampa and New Orleans. So I think that just say, hey, look, we are a first place team. It's time to really kind of step on the gas here and say, let's get it going here in the last few games of the season.
Yeah, it's very interesting this year. Quick story. Brad Edwards was my roommate with the Falcons last 2 years that I was with the club, and he was with the Washington Redskins. And they had a year in the early 90s where their bye week came after their 5th game. And as the season began, Joe Gibbs is meeting with the team, and the season is just about ready to begin. They're preparing for week 1. And Joe says this. He goes, guys, I've had a meeting with the assistant coaches, and I don't want to do it, but they do. So he automatically created an us versus them. And the coaches have said, for every game that we win going into the bye week, I will give you a day off during that bye week. So if you win 1 game, you'll get 1 day off. If you win 5, you'll get 5 days off. Well, it was as if fire had spread throughout there. Well, you got to be kidding me. They went 5-0. And they ended up winning the Super Bowl. But he planted seeds. Now, you can't do it at week 10. You can't give guys
right. You can't get 10 days off.
But you can make a deal with the guys. And Joe Gibbs doing that, I thought, was a stroke of genius. I thought it was fantastic, as if a guy needs any more motivation to play well. But it ended up working well for them. And the Super Bowl ring for everybody that was on the Redskins during that season. Doing your diligence. This is the administration. This is your assistant coaches. This is your scouts, everybody. What do we do on first, second, third down that our opponents know that we're doing? We have to change some things up. I think that'll be a critical part of the first couple of days during this bye week. But the Falcons definitely at first place. We're not beating them up, but we just want to see a better team and one that kind of dominates the division and gets a first-round playoff home game. That's what our goal would be for everyone with the Falcons. Doing your diligence, it's important. And speaking of doing your diligence, Cornel, if I were looking for some way, shape, or form to look good during the holidays, do you have any ideas for me on how I might be able to make that happen? How I can get a quality clothing line for guys or for gals? Tell me what I would need to do.
I can tell you right now, come to DNK Suit City. We have 6 Metro Atlanta locations. We have one in Stone Mountain, Duluth, Decatur, South DeKalb, Morrow, and also we have another one in the Metro Atlanta area off of Campbell Road in Greenbrier. One thing that we do, we've been established for over 35 years, but one thing that we do every day, buy a suit, get another suit half off. Also, we got a thing going on right now. You buy 2 suits at regular price, you get 1 for a penny. So basically, you buy 2 suits at a regular price, and you get 1 for a penny. And we do have the top lines. We have Calvin Klein. We have a few Michael Kors, and we have other brands in the store. Also, too, right now we have turtlenecks that's 3 buy 3 get buy 3 for $60, And going to Black Friday, we're gonna have sweaters for $10. We're gonna have ties for $10. We're gonna have tie box sets for $10. We're gonna do everything to eliminate everything out the store for Black Friday sales. And possibly, I can't say right now, possibly there may be a flash sale on Black Friday where you buy a suit and you get a suit free.
Wow.
So basically, you buy a suit for $150, you get the other suit free. And it may just be for Black Friday, or it may just be for the weekend. We're working on it. We're figuring the numbers out. And basically, we may be doing that. But what you can do, if you want to know the promos or whatever that we're doing every week, you can text SAVE. Oh, sorry, y'all. You can text SAVE to 87573 and reply with the Y. And what happens is you would get a text message to tell you any promos that we got going on from the flash sales, also too from anything that we got going on for the weekend sales. And we always having sales every weekend at D&K Sioux City. So like I said, go to any one of our Metro Atlanta locations, look us up on Google, check our reviews. Our review averages between 4.5 to 5.0. We give great customer service in the stores, and also too, it's a place where some of the stars come in and shop. And I'm not going to say his name, but I can. He'd be a good friend. Desmond Howard just came in here last week, purchased a couple of things for the college football ESPN game day show. So most of the time when you see him on ESPN, it's something that he possibly may have got in from his stylist here in our stores. And we also sell the Dominique Wilkins brand. He's one of the people that's established his suits in our stores, and we sell his brand. And we got all name brands of shoes. So basically, come into any D&K Sioux City store, just tell them that Cornel for D&K referred you from 100 yards of football. And what we'll do as well too, they may give you a discount at the front of the register, a 10% discount at the front of the register.
There we go. I love that. Now, I think Logan would like to wear a pair of skinny jeans, but I'm not a skinny jean guy. Can you still find me something that would, in an athletic cut, maybe a beer belly, whether you shape like a pear or whether you're shaped like a bronze Adonis? It doesn't matter. Come on in and we'll find some clothes for you. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We do it all. We also have an alteration department in all our locations as well. So therefore, you can purchase a suit. You can size up the suit. We'll go ahead and make the adjustments right there. It's an additional charge, but at the same time, too, we can adjust it to make it fit you right.
Well, and with the discount that you just mentioned, for anybody that says, hey, I've been watching 100 yards of football, and you'll be able to pay for it in some respect and lower the price for you. Quality clothing at great prices.
Yes, sir.
Look forward to it. Well, thank you so much for that. We appreciate knowing a little bit more about D&K Sioux City with the locations. You can go online, you can go to the text, or go into the store themselves, and you'll see the difference. Well, for Logan Landers, our producer and engineer, and for Cornel Hardy, our host here with 100 Yards of Football, we want to say thank you, everybody. I'm Harper LeBel, filling in for Vincent Turner. You've been watching the Atlanta Falcons Weekly Report, and good luck, Falcons. Enjoy the bye week and get ready for the Chargers. But thank you for tuning in, everybody. Have a fantastic day.